Good day, everybody. Jim Feist, Andy Iskoe from Las Vegas. We got some contests to talk about. We got some alternate line betting, how to do it, how to win, how to collect some money at the window, cash some tickets, and we got some teasers to talk about. It's exciting. It's exciting. The sad part about it all is we're down to the last 5 weeks of the NFL season. I hate that.
Well, the good news is after the last 5 weeks of the NFL season, the real season begins, and that's the games amongst the 14 teams that will make the playoffs, 13 of which will have their seasons, of course, end with a loss. And I guess the interesting, some people would say exciting, I prefer to say the interesting part, is that some very familiar names are in severe danger of not even making the playoffs, much less winning their divisions.
Boy, some of the teams that we thought were deadlocks to be there, they're not going to be there.
Why don't you talk about that if you've got 6 weeks, 6 losses right now, you are in great danger. I checked it out when the NFL changed their schedule back in 2021 from 16 to 17 games. Okay, and then of course they added the seventh playoff team for each conference instead of the six, giving only the number one seed rather than number 1 and 2 seeds a bye, as had been done in the past. So we're talking about 4 seasons, 2021 through 2024. There have been 6 teams that finished the 17-game schedule with a record of 10-7, and only one of those teams failed to make the playoffs, and that was Seattle last year, who went 10-7, had a very good season, but just didn't win enough games. I think they may have lost on tiebreakers to a couple of other 10-7 teams, but that's the only instance. The other 5 10-7 teams made the playoffs, and the reason why that's important is now you've got a number of teams with 6 losses, meaning they should be able to or could be able to afford loss number 7, but loss number 8 is almost certain to eliminate you unless you happen to be the division winner. And I would say right now that would only apply to the NFC South with Tampa Bay and Carolina, although they have Carolina has a bye. Tampa Bay has 5 games to go, and each of them needs to win at least 2 of those games to get to 9 wins. So that's what's ahead for those teams.
Andy, the AFC East isn't all that great. I mean, you could have a losing record there.
Well, New England's 11-2.
No,
you're talking about for wild cards.
Excuse me. I'm talking about the AFC North.
Yeah. AFC North. You've got 6-6 leading the division with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, who play each other a couple of times between now and the end of the season. It is quite possible. Yes, you are absolutely correct. It is quite possible that the winner of that division will be 9-8.
Wow.
Okay. So obviously, if the winner's 10-7 to get in, yeah, but 9-8.
You could have a 9-8 in that division and a 9-8 in the NFC South. That would be incredible.
Yeah, that would be, and the reason why 10-7 might not get you in this year, as occurred to Seattle last year, is because there are so many bad teams at the bottom of the standings compared to the teams at the top, where you've got teams right now with 8 and 9 wins, meaning they only need another couple of wins to get to either 10 or 11, and most of these teams have, I think all but the 4 teams with buys this week, and the teams last night, Dallas and Detroit. All those other teams have 5 games remaining to go to win 3 out of 5 to get to 11.
It's possible Chicago, who's the number 1 seed right now in the NFC, with 1 loss, could drop to the number 7 seed.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
Well, because unfortunately, you can argue it either way. Maybe they should do away with divisions, or at the very least award playoff berths and playoff seeding based upon your record, regardless of whether or not you're a division winner. In other words, let's say San Francisco, Seattle and the Rams finish with the 2 best records in the NFC. They should be seeded 1 and 2, even if Seattle, let's say it's Rams 1, Seattle 2. Seattle should be seeded number 2, even if they don't get a first round home game. They talked about that, and they said they want to give it to the 4 division winners regardless of record, which is fine. But I would say after that you reseed them. So therefore the Rams would be 1, and they would have the bye for that first round. Seattle would have to play a first round game on the road because they weren't a division winner. But if they win that, they have a record that's equal to the Rams and would seed number 2, they would then be a host of a second round game because they would then be have the second best record of the team remaining in the playoffs, not necessarily the second best seed because they'd be doing it differently.
The quality of opposition that you play is so random. Some teams have very soft schedules. Some teams have very tough schedules. So when you look at that, you could have a team that has a very marginal record, but they're really good, but they played such tough teams, that they can't get in.
That's true, but I guess that that's like a part of handicapping. Is Chicago as good as their 9-3 record suggests? Well, if you believe they are as good, then you're not going to penalize them for who they played necessarily, because you're saying they are as good as that, meaning they would have had as good record against better competition if they had played more of such teams. If you believe that they're not as good as their record, then when you handicap them, you downgrade them for that 9-3 record and say maybe that 9-3 record is more like 6-6, and since they've not outscored their opposition by all that much, or at worst 7-5. So there's a difference there. But the bottom line is, until they change the method of making the playoffs, which I don't think they ever should, you've got to go by wins and losses. The only other solution that might make some sense, and it would upset a lot of fans, is that you go back to the old baseball way of having 2 separate conferences with no interconference play other than the Super Bowl. Or if you want to jigger it a little bit, maybe you say you have interconference matchups in the playoffs. So, for example, the AFC, let's again say that the number 1 seeds get byes. So you're talking about 2 through 7. So the AFC number 2 seed hosts the NFC number 7 seed. The AFC 3 seed hosts the number 4, whoever the better record is of the teams in the conference. That might make it a little bit more interesting. You would eliminate a lot of interesting matchups because you would get rid of interleague play. At the same time, you would make, instead of there just being 10 divisional games, you would have, you would have all 16 games be within the same conference. If you want to keep the divisions, that means you'd have 6 games between the teams in the NFC East, let's say, and the other 11 games would be against 11 of the other 12 teams in your conference. Don't know how well that would go over, but it would make the win-loss record much more reflective of where the team should finish, and you wouldn't necessarily because you do away with divisions, except maybe for the scheduling purposes of 2 games a season, you would do away with a team winning a division with a 9-8 record.
You know as well as I do,
it'll never happen.
There's no way to make everybody happy.
No.
So tell us about the contest.
All right, I guess I will start with, there are 3 contests that we talk about. I really have not wanted to talk about the Circa Millions and the Westgate Super Contest because they are both the consensus that we normally have been doing in past years of the top 5 selections each week. They have been, and we are now through 13 weeks. They have been hitting around 40% for the season. Now, normally it's around 50%, between 48 and 52%, but it has never been this bad.
Maybe we should be fading them.
I'm sure some people have, if they said, you know what, it's been 6 weeks where they played 30 games and they're, literally 11-19. Maybe we should start going the other way, which is interesting because there's probably more dead money in the Circa Contest because of the fact that they have so many more entries. They got like 5,800 entries as opposed to the Westgate, which has, I think, about 11 or 1,200. And under the 11 of 1200, you're going to get more sharp money in there from the professionals, the poker players, the outstanding football handicappers, etc. So it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to post a bad record, let's say, in the Westgate, because you're going to have sharper handicappers for the most part. That's just a theory on my part, maybe totally wrong. The other thing is they allow more entries in the Circa Million, so that probably means a lot of people who really, I mean, a number of them obviously who are not professionals or whatever will have good seasons, but the bulk of the field is probably people who are not going to be able to get much more above, say, even a 52 or 53% record. So the fact that the consensus is having such a bad year, especially in the Circa where there are more entries, maybe there have been people who have been fading it, which is interesting because the Circa, unlike the Westgate, the Circa has quarterly prizes and an annual prize for the worst record in the contest or in the quarter. So let's say in quarter one, you had 16 games played, or let's say quarter two, which went 5 weeks. So you had 1 through 4, 5 through 9. So let's say after 9 weeks, someone said, you know what? This consensus has been consistently bad. It hasn't shown any improvement from the first month of the season. I'm going to go for the quarterly losers prize in quarter three. I don't know how that turned out or if anyone had that strategy, but of course the third quarter just ended for both Westgate and Circa, weeks 10, 11, 12, and 13. And the final quarter for both contests starts this week, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now, so that's why I haven't covered those contests this year. Although maybe I should just report on that, because number one of the Survivor contests is over, and that's the Grandissimo. Remember, they have those split weeks, week 13A and 13B, and you had 6 people alive going into week 13A, which was the Thanksgiving Day games, the 3 of those, and the game between Chicago and Philadelphia on Friday. And so the 6 people, they had to put their picks in for the Thursday-Friday games, and then if they won, they would advance to the second part of Thanksgiving weekend, which was the Monday games. Well, I forget who the first one was. I believe 3 people may have all been playing. It was either Detroit. I think it was Detroit that they played, and of course they lost to Green Bay. And the other 3 contestants in Grandissimo, that's the $100,000 contest. They had 69 entries, so they're playing for $6.9 million. The other 3 were on Philadelphia. So if I believe that is correct, so they ended up in a 6-way split. The contest has ended, and each person became a millionaire to the tune of, I think, about $1.15 million, something like that.
It's probably all of them were millionaires going in.
Or pretty close to it, yes.
Yeah, right. To put up 100,000, you have to have some money.
Yeah. Now, the Westgate Super Contest Survivor, that's the one where they had a $5,000 entry fee. We've been following that a little bit recently. That field started with 111, making the $5,000 entry fee calculate into a winner-take-all prize pool of $550,000. They did not have the split Thanksgiving week, so they were able to play any game that they wanted to from the Green Bay Detroit game that started Thanksgiving through the end. Don't have exactly who they played because all 8 of them advanced. So, our colleague Scott Pritchard is one of them. One of my longtime friends and proxy clients is another of them. And there are 6 others. And they still have a number of teams remaining that have not been played that might very well be played this week. I believe Tampa Bay is available to just about everybody. I think, just about everybody. We're talking about 8 people. But I think Tampa Bay is one of them, which is one of the better teams on there as far as this week's schedule goes. And I'll get to that when we get to Survivor in a moment, because I believe in Survivor also that's going to be the more attractive matchup. So that may be one of the picks that they use this week, but everybody advanced. So the 5, and by the way, because of the way that the contest was last week, and I believe one of my guy who was still in it had a chance, as did 2 others, to win the entire contest, because if I recall correctly, of the 8 people, 5 were on the Chargers, 1 was on Seattle, 1, I believe, trying to remember who the other ones were last week. It's off the hand, but there were 3 people. I think 1 was on the Dolphins, and who won, and I forget the other one that won last week. I think maybe it was the Jaguars, I believe. So there was a chance that if the Chargers lost last week, and it was highly unlikely, since they were so popular with their game against the Raiders. But if the Chargers had lost, those 5 entrants would have been out. And then if 2 of the 3 between Seattle, the Jaguars, and the Dolphins had lost, 2 of those 3, you would have had 1 winner for the $550,000. So I think this is the second week in a row that all 8 contestants advance. So we'll see what happens this week. Now, as far as the more widely popularized contest, Circa Survivor, that had 18,178 entries, each putting up the $1,000 to create a winner-take-all or winner-split-all pool of 18,178,000. We had a lot of carnage a couple of weeks ago, and we had a lot of carnage, I think, about 3 weeks ago. And last week we had a little bit more. We had 900 people entering that short Thanksgiving Day weekend. And of course, as we all know, all the favorites lost on Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving Friday. You had 13 people eliminated with the Lions as Green Bay won on Thanksgiving Day. In the middle game, 78 people backed the Chiefs. By the way, three advanced with the Packers. 78 people backed the Chiefs, who lost to the Cowboys. Cowboys had 8 entries advanced. And the Ravens had 269 entries eliminated when they lost at home to the Bengals, who actually 10 people played the Bengals. And I believe, if I remember, one of the people who played the Bengals had, I think he had 7 entries. He had bought 10. I think he had 7 remaining. I think he played 5 on the Ravens, 1 on the Bengals, and 1 on one of the other teams that also advanced. So he basically, he said, he may have said, of the 4 underdogs capable of winning, we don't know what we're going to get from Joe Burrow. Baltimore still has some issues. And Jackson hadn't looked good. I still think Baltimore's going to win the game, so I'll put 5 entries on them, but I'll put an entry on the Bengals because Baltimore's probably going to be the most popular choice. It actually wasn't. So if he had put his entry on the Bears, he would have really been part of a very narrow field, because 489 people were on the Eagles on Friday. And they lost to the Bears, who actually had 28 people. So that reduced the field from 900 down to 49 entering the first half of the week. And fortunately, of those 49, unlike the week before of the 900, I think there were 902 or something when 2 people didn't submit their picks. Everybody submitted their picks for both the first part of Thanksgiving and the second part.
It's amazing, Andy. You get that far and you don't put your picks in. That's incredible. When you,
your picks are, excuse me. Time out. I am wrong. 2 people did not put a pick in.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
I said it was 2. Yeah.
You go into the contest this far, and then you don't put your picks in. And it's like you're throwing money away.
Yeah. Each ticket had a value of each entry going into Thanksgiving had a value of roughly $21,000.
Wow.
That's. I can understand. Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I was going to say I can understand weeks 1 or 2. No, I can't. you still put $1,000 in there.
Some things happen to people in life that you can't get around. It's happened to me once, and I didn't get my picks in. Basically because of medical treatment.
Yeah. But I would guarantee you, the people who did not put their picks in, I would say probably 85 or 90%. Let's be somewhat conservative. It was not because of medical reasons. It was either they forgot, the proxy didn't do it, which is like my friend that I was speaking to about before, who has before we went on. I've been his proxy for a number of years. I told him, you know what? I know you're in the hospital. We may not get a chance for you to speak to me. We're speaking now before, while you're still there. Give me your tentative pick that if you can't get back to me, I'll at least put in a pick that I know you seriously contemplated. I'm sure he's going to get back to me because, he's going to be released probably this evening. So he'll be able to give me the pick, and we'll probably be able to talk about it. But that's one thing that I do recommend to people. And I do have one client who was, I think he survived. I think he also got eliminated on Thanksgiving. Yeah, he was one of the people at the Eagles. he always, and I totally encourage it, and I certainly, anybody who asks me, I do not refuse. I say, he sends me a pick on Friday with the deadline to enter on Saturday. He says, if you don't hear back from me, submit this pick. Okay. I always write back to him, and fortunately, it's always been the case. I say, I will do that, but I would really appreciate it if you would send me an email on Saturday morning confirming the pick or making a revision so that I know you will have considered everything you wanted to consider and you've made your final decision. And we're fine with that. And he's always confirmed, but I always want him to give me the option of if he makes a revision that I know about it. But there will be people who, for whatever reason, thought, I don't know that they would think that they were eliminated, but maybe they did. I don't know why, because you can always check it online or on your app. So even if you're out of state, you can check it on your app. You just can't submit picks. So yeah, I'm very surprised there. So ultimately, you had 851 people eliminated, all but 2 of them by picking a losing team, and that left 49 entries available for the second part of Thanksgiving weekend, the Sunday-Monday games. And fortunately, all 49 made picks, and 45 of them won. The biggest pick on Sunday was the Chargers with 21 of the 45, nearly of the 49, rather, almost half of the remaining field on the Chargers. You had both the 49ers and the Dolphins get 7 apiece. The Dolphins beating the Saints, the 49ers winning at Cleveland. The next one were 5 on the Jaguars, who humiliated the Titans. There was 1 Monday night on the Patriots. There was another one somewhere that survived. And there were 4 that were eliminated when the Rams lost to the Panthers.
Who's the most obvious play for the survivor this week?
Well, if you go by the point spread, and again, a lot of it has to do, and I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Because not everybody's going to have teams available.
Right. The biggest favorites on the boards right now, the Rams, 8.5 at the Cardinals, 8.5, 9 at the Cardinals, and the Bucks, a similar number at home against the Saints. And I would think they're both divisional matchups, but the Cardinals, despite their record not being much better than the Saints, although they beat the Saints, have been a much more competitive team. And you have the Rams coming off of a very serious loss last week at Carolina, because it allowed Seattle to catch them in the standings, which means that if the Rams win out or the Seattle Seahawks win out, that team almost certainly is the number 1 seed, because I think Philadelphia is a little bit too far behind now. And the Rams will be at Seattle later, because Seattle lost to the Rams the first time. So if the Rams had won last week and Seattle had won last week, which they did, the Rams would have that 1-game lead, meaning Seattle, by a win over the Rams in a few weeks, could tie them for the number 1 seed. So now, again, this is a contest where you just have to pick the straight-up winners. They don't have to cover the spread. So I would think the Rams will not overlook the Cardinals. It's a division rival, and I think the Arizona Cardinals whipped the Rams last year. I think it was early in the year when they played. I could go back and check that. And if they have the Rams available, and I believe a number of people still do have the Rams available, and I think a great number still have Tampa Bay available against their weakest division rival, New Orleans. So I'm going to say, I would almost say, and I'll say while you speak a little bit, I'll see if I can get that up there, because I can get the availability chart, which shows how many will be on the Bucs. So I think it'll be the Bucs number 1. The Rams number 2, and really there's no other. The Broncos at the Raiders, the Packers over the Bears. I don't know that I want to go against the Bears even straight up right now. Plus the points, much less pick them to win the game outright, though I wouldn't be surprised. So those are the most likely teams. I would say it'll be the Bucs, it'll be the Rams.
Or the
I guess people will play the Broncos on the road at the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are dog meat this year. So
they played a 10-7. They played a 10-7 game back in Denver a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything, really. Even though Baltimore is a 6.5 point, 5.5 point favorite, nobody's going to be on them unless that's all they have left. I don't see that. I don't understand the Colts line. I don't understand why they're favored at Jacksonville. But
no. In fact, I did a podcast last night. We talked about this game, and I sort of did my usual wisecrack that I throw in there very often. And I said, I can only imagine what the lines makers who put this line up were thinking. Wait a minute, what will we think? I said, holy S ... T. What was I thinking? Indianapolis hasn't won in Jacksonville in 10 years. And oh, by the way, Daniel Jones is playing on a partially broken leg. I made them the favorite. What was I thinking?
So Mike Palm from Circa has this line, "You can't be serious," which I love. So you can't be. Is
he related to John McEnroe, who made that famous?
The
tennis player.
I forgot about that. I don't think he's.
You cannot be serious! He yelled at the ref.
Yeah. McEnroe was funny with that. Yes.
Yeah.
And he got. I don't know. He got tossed a lot of games.
Yeah.
He got.
It's like one of those famous. It's like one of the more famous, oft-repeated bits of audio or video in sports, along with "We play to win the game." The Bears were who we thought they were. Playoffs. Those are probably four of the most oft-used expressions.
You can't be. Yeah. What was it? Who was the player that was talking about the playoffs or practice?
Playoffs was Jim Moore. Yeah, that was the one. That was Allen Iverson. Practice. You talking about practice?
Practice. You serious? Practice?
That's another one. Yeah, but that was Jim Moore was the one with the playoffs and everything. And I ironically with the Colts at the time.
So we got some teasers. We talked about that.
I do have the team availability, by the way, for the Circa Sports, just to let the people know who might be interested as far as what everybody has remaining. Let me just zoom it in a little bit so I don't have to.
While you're doing that,
go ahead.
It doesn't matter what the favorites are sometimes, because some of the people have used up teams, and you can only use a team once. So
that is correct.
If you used all the teams that are today are favored, you got to go in with a really bad team, an underdog. Yeah, you might have to take a team like the Raiders or New Orleans or something like that.
Well, the chances are you could still take a team, because remember, at this point, you've only used 14 of the 32 teams. You've got 18 remaining. Now, obviously, if you play to the final week, you will have used 20 of the 32 teams. So right now, everybody has Atlanta available, and they host Seattle. Carolina has a bye this week, but all 45 still have them. All 45 have Cleveland. I would think there will be some people who will play the Browns over Tennessee this week. Just remember, that's just to win the game. You have 45 people on the Raiders. You have 42 of the 45 on Minnesota, as their struggling Minnesota team will host Jaden Daniels, who was, I believe, cleared to start this week. New Orleans has all 45 people. They are at Tampa Bay. The Giants and the Jets. Well, the Giants are on bye. The Jets actually host Miami, and they are a small underdog. They have all 45 have them available. 38 have Tampa Bay. Now, only 4 people have Seattle left to play if they want to use them against Atlanta this week. New England's on a bye, but only 6 people have them. 8 people have the Rams left. Only 3 have the Chargers left, and because last week against the Raiders was their last really playable matchup of the year as far as straight up goes. 3 people have Green Bay left if they want to play them against Chicago. Only 10 have Chicago left. I would think that the game is not going to get a lot of action, although I would say more people will be. Well, I don't know about this because only 3 can be on Green Bay. I don't know if anybody will be on Chicago. Detroit had 4 left going into last night, and Denver at the Raiders, only 3 people have the Broncos remaining. 5 have Baltimore against Pittsburgh, and 7 have Buffalo if they want to play them against the Bengals.
And now I was listening to some people talking about game theory for Survivor. If you believe that most people are going to be on Green Bay because they're 6.5, 7-point favorite, which they are.
Yeah.
And Chicago's the number 1 seed right now in the NFC, and you want to knock off and move up. I mean, you're going to have some big cojones to do this. But you come in on Chicago. That's
That's like the one who played the Bengals last Thursday night. Even with Joe Burrow starting, the Ravens. Well, and again, I think he had 5 entries on the Ravens and 1 on the Bengals, but still, he could have had 6 on the Ravens or put that other entry somewhere else. It's hard to go against the Bears. Ben Johnson's doing everything right now, and remember, he knows Green Bay from having them face them twice a year when he was the offensive coordinator at Detroit. So he probably knows a little bit about the Green Bay defense from having to prepare to play them with the offensive coordinator, and he probably knows about the offensive Green Bay because he looks at other teams to see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and maybe incorporate into his game plan. So there is a bit of an advantage, I think, there for Ben Johnson that I don't know how much people have thought about as far as his knowledge of Green Bay is concerned.
It's interesting. We got to move on to the teasers and alt lines if you want to deal with them. But the teasers are something interesting. A lot of people that not a lot, but a few people I know are playing 3-team 10-point teasers, which can be very effective.
Do you know what the vig on that? What the vig on that is generally?
Minus 130.
130. Okay, that's like playing a 7-point teaser, 7.2 team teaser.
Right.
Yeah.
It's and they've messed around with the odds on 2-teamers so much that the 10 points haven't been messed with that much.
Yeah, because it's not as popular. I don't know that every place in town offers them. Offshore and online they do, yeah.
Yeah, you got to shop. You got to have outs.
Yeah.
You got to have a lot of outs. Nobody's going to let you win too much. Anyway,
it used to be that you had to have a lot of outs because of the numbers. Now you have to have a lot of outs because of the vig attached to those numbers,
and the options for what to play, what you can play. Like out here in Vegas, we can't play FanDuel or DraftKings or any of those. But so if those things are being offered elsewhere, we're not allowed to play those.
That is correct.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that you got to dance through, and a lot of raindrops that you got to miss. But I just suggest to people when you're playing teasers, look at the underdogs. This is an underdog year. There's not that much separation between the B and the C teams. The D and the, I mean, there's some teams like Tennessee's garbage. The Raiders are garbage. So
I have the standings in front of me, but I remember last week last week there were 8 teams with 3 wins or less.
That's
12 weeks into the season at that time.
That's unbelievable. 8 teams. Wow. That's 20. That's 20.
A couple of them may have won the
25% of the league.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Which is why 10-7 might not get you in as a wild card because if you're having so many teams win so few games, those losses that those teams have are going to go to the teams that might normally win 9 or 10 games, and now they're going to win 11 or 12. 12 might be a stretch. 11 certainly won't be.
Andy, what do you got? Do you have something to want to pass on?
With the teasers, you look at the favorites. Like for example, and I'm going to take a look at the contest lines that I have those in front of me. Although I guess I could look at Don Beska, but I haven't seen the screen lately. You have 2 favorites. The Ravens and the Bills, who are minus 5.5. And if you were to use a 6-team teaser, you would get them at plus 1/2, which is basically like playing a money line. So rather than lay the minus 120 or minus 125 and get a number that probably doesn't come up, which is 0, which would be a tie, you might want to just do a money line parlay of the Ravens and the Steelers and see if what you would get back would cover the minus 120 or minus 125 that you would have to lay. In other words, if you laid 125 to win 100 by playing a 6-point teaser, or 120 to win 100, see what you would see what you would get if you played that same 120 or 125 on the money line parlay of the Ravens and the Bills, because that might pay. Instead of paying you back the 120 or the 125, maybe you get 130 or 135.
Now, to me, I look at things a little differently because it's such an upside down year.
The dogs.
Nobody is really any good, and nobody is really that far ahead of anyone else. I
Well,
would look.
the two teams that are the Patriots and the Bears, and there are still some people who don't really believe it because of the quality of competition that they faced.
That's true. Well, you got to throw the Rams in there as a possibility too.
Yeah,
They're pretty good. But I would look at a 10-point teaser, and I'd look at teams like, Cincinnati or
yeah.
or Chicago or Jacksonville or Atlanta or the Jets. I mean, these
Well,
are.
you got Tua going north there with Miami.
Yeah, and that would be one of the reasons. And Tua makes the Jets a lot better than they were with Fields. There's no question about that.
No, I'm talking about Tua Tagovailoa of the Dolphins going north. Tyrod Taylor's been playing better than Fields. Yeah,
I meant Tyrod Taylor. Yeah, you're right.
And then the Jets are 3-point dogs. There are 5 teams this week that are underdogs. Now you had it last night with Dallas, but they've already played. You've got the Commanders, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Chargers, all at +3 or less. I mean, you could tease them up to, double digits.
Well, actually, Washington is actually a favorite.
Oh, did they go back to being a favorite now?
Yeah, they're 1.5 everywhere.
Okay, they must have said that teams to choose from.
Daniels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not an underdog anymore. They opened an underdog. Yeah. But yeah, you gotta look around and look at the different options that you can win money doing this, because the bookmaker has a big advantage. You're laying 11 to 10. You got to look at your options and shop for prices and open up 2 or 3 apps with whether it's 50 or 100 or 500 in your different accounts, so you have options to bet.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. And,
by the way, the two favorites that you could play down: the Broncos versus the Raiders, and the Rams versus the Cardinals. If you want a 2-teamer, and then again, you still might want to do the money line, but I think the money line won't pay as much as what you have to lay the vig to win the 100.
The money line is going to be very expensive with those.
Yeah.
And they could you could look at Houston. I mean, the Texans have a great defense. The only problem is it's going to be about 20 degrees. You got an indoor team playing outdoor in 20-degree weather. That's not a positive expectation.
I think that affects offenses more than defenses. Offenses have to be, timing and everything. Defenses are just hitting and hitting.
Maybe it hurts more to hit when it's that cold.
Could be.
Yeah.
Weight could come into play there, yeah.
So anything else, Andy?
Oh, but by the way, they still have the Jaguars who, you said before, we both talked about the Colts being favored. Well, they're last I saw, they're +1.5. So you could tease the Jaguars up, let's say, with the Chargers at home. Because the Eagles now lost their big defensive player.
That's right.
That line went from 3 to 2.5. Eagles still favored.
The problem with the Chargers, we just don't know how Herbert's going to play with that surgically repaired hand. We don't know that, but
I would think a lot of short passes and the running game, and maybe a little trickery where he hands the ball off to one of the backs and they throw a short little pass somewhere.
He's not going to hand the ball. He's not going to hand the ball off with his left hand, though.
No, he'll probably cradle it against his elbow, the kink in the elbow to hand it off.
Oh boy, it's a long season.
I don't know the size of his hands, but he may be able to grip it enough to hand it off with his passing hand.
Well, he's a 6'5" guy, so I imagine he has big hands.
Yeah,
something that you and I would not be able to understand.
No, we're not quite a foot shorter, but we're not close to that range.
He's a big guy. Anything else?
And he's a tough guy. Well, we could talk a little bit, I guess, about alternate lines. Alternate lines sometimes are if you really have an underdog that you like. For example, we talked about the Colts and the Jaguars. If you feel that the Jaguars are going to win this game and that Daniel Jones is going to have a rough time, maybe you want to lay 7.5 with the Jaguars, or certainly 3.5.
That's exactly right.
You might lay a little juice, but not very much.
And what price? Well, laying juice. You wouldn't be laying juice. You'd be getting.
Well, I'm talking about the 3.5. At 7.5, you definitely would.
You'd be
But yeah, no, you'd be getting at minus 3.5. You would be getting a plus price because at plus 1.5, you're only laying minus 110. Yeah,
right.
you're right.
So
100%. Yeah.
give me an example. What kind of plus price would you be getting?
I'd have to see what the money line is on a normal 3.5 point underdog, and ask a little bit and see a little bit better. So let me see. Where's there? Okay. Let me see the Tennessee Titans. That might not be a bad example. Tennessee Titans on the money line. Cleveland is a minus 180, laying 3.5.
Okay.
Tennessee's plus 155 at plus 3.5. And then when you realize you're not making a 3.5 point adjustment from the opening line, you're making a 5 point adjustment from the opening line, where you went from minus 1.5, you went from plus 1.5 to minus 3.5. You might get close to that plus 150 or 160. In fact, let me just take a look here.
I would have to think
Buffalo is a 5 point favorite. Well, it's a little bit more. See, but see, then that's an adjusted number, so that's not really a good measure, because you're adjusting a line as opposed. In other words, Buffalo's minus 240, laying 5.5. Okay, but we would want to know what would the line be if they were laying, minus 4, and we can't take a look at another minus what a team who's minus 4 is right now, because that's a zero adjustment. You're making a 1.5 point adjustment before you're making a 5.5 point adjustment. You're making a 1.5 point adjustment from what a normal 3.5 point favorite would be. So it's hard to really say.
I would think you'd be betting better than 2-1, 2.5-1, making that move. Plus,
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I think it's a positive expectation that you'd like. You like them to win. I could see that. All right, Andy. Another good video. Thank you very much.
The video lasted for me almost as much as we had some issues with the other podcast the other day, but right now it's back a little bit. It's flickering a little bit, and maybe it'll tighten a little bit. So I got a week to work on that. But as far as a favorite that you would want to, the only ones that come to mind is if you think the Bills are going to demolish the Bengals, which a lot of people do not think. In fact, they think they could be tough just to win the game. So I don't know if you want to do that. I don't know that you want to risk playing an alternate line with the Rams. It is a division game. I don't mind playing them, minus the 8.5, and certainly don't mind them playing in the teaser. Now, the Broncos could be interesting, although the Raiders played them well, but they're already laying 7.5. And do the Bucs have the
well, I think a perfect example
adjust that line? So it's really tough to find any team that you want to adjust the line, unless you wanted to take the Bears might plus 3.5.
Well, how about you take Kansas City minus 7.5? That's an example.
Yeah,
that's
you could do that if you like the Chiefs. Yeah.
About. So instead of laying 110, you're getting plus money.
Yeah.
You're going to get plus money. You got to win by 8, but you think they're going to handle Houston? If these are the kind of things you can shop around and think about. They're not always going to work, but they give you a little bit more value for your bet. But you're putting yourself in a negative position because you're making the number worse. But
one thing about underdogs this year, and I don't have the exact numbers for point spread range, but underdogs in the first 194 games of the season, 69 of those underdogs have won straight up. That's about 36%. So 36% would say, if you've got let's say you've got 6 underdogs this week, that 2 of them this year, 2 of them would win. So that would be a situation where you consider a money line or an adjusted line. Maybe you think the Bears could beat the Packers. Maybe you think the Jaguars beating with the Colts would still be a small. But that might be even money right now on the money line, given the fact that they're only plus 1.5. If you think the Chargers are going to beat the Eagles, that might be one that you could consider for an alternate line. Maybe lay 3.5 with the Chargers, get a real nice money line.
Definitely, there's some competitive games this week. The underdogs are live. This is the end of the season where all these games matter, and you're going to get some of these teams get up and bite some of these favorites. It's going to happen. Yeah. Didn't happen last night, but it definitely can happen.
Well, it happened 4 times on Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday.
That's very true.
That's what eliminated 800 and what did I say? 851. Well, I'm sorry, 849 of the contestants. Failure to submit a pick eliminated the other two. But even there, you had 900 people, and you had so many people on the four favorites, just on the two biggest ones, 269, 489. That's 758 of the 900 got eliminated when the Ravens and the Eagles lost.
Wow. Andy, I got to sign off. Have a great weekend.
I wish you and everybody who've used this just a great winning weekend, and upgrade the Christmas gifts you're going to buy as a result.
Take care, Andy. Thank you.
You too, Jim. Thank you.
Bye-bye.